And I'm going to start that over because I forgot to hit record. So good morning. It's 10 a.m. on the East Coast. We want to welcome you to the Michigan District of Kiwanis. Hosts the third Saturday of each month a program called Kiwanis Cafe. So I hope everybody's got their their beverage of choice. I know we have some people on from other parts of the world, so it could be 10 o'clock in the evening for them. We'll let them have their beverage of choice. But we're happy to have back with us. For those of you that may have just joined us, Rhonda Vrell, who has been with Kiwanis International almost 16 years. And she's going to talk to us and continue our conversation about achieving club excellence and the tools that are out there for community assessment and club assessment. And if you weren't able to join us for the first one, don't worry. Rhonda's going to do this one. We'll have the first one will be recorded, but there'll be plenty of opportunities to ask questions. Be very interactive, so don't feel like you can't talk today. You're welcome to put them in the chat or raise your hand. And Rhonda will, as I mentioned, we will be recording this, and we will make it available to all of our members and everybody that wants it at a later, probably by the end of the weekend, off of the Michigan District of Kiwanis YouTube page is where we bank all these with all the programs that we've been doing so that you can go back and take a look at them. So Rhonda, who's coming to us from Florida from another week where it's 81, and I think I'm actually in Indianapolis, not very far from the Kiwanis International office, staying with my mom, and it is 18 degrees here. So I think we just 18 to 81. I'm just going to turn it over to you. Thanks, Rhonda.
Well, thank you. And I just thought I've been recorded. So if there's anything that appears that I've said that I deny saying, someone messed with the video and altered it. Because I'll be honest, sometimes I say things and someone goes, you said, and I'm like, did I? But we're going to talk about the Achieving Club Excellence tools, the first two tools in a whole series of tools. I'm very passionate about the tools. I really believe that if your club embraces this and really works through the process, they can really become a great club. But we're going to focus on the first two because I've also learned if you don't get started, nothing's ever going to happen. So we're going to start at the beginning. And this is so true. Everybody wants things to change and nobody wants to change themselves. But what we have been forced into is change. And I like to I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I do want to put something in perspective. Is part of the reason people don't like change is because in order to change, you're leaving something behind. So there's a certain amount of a grieving process for many people for leaving the past behind because there was something comfortable about it. The future may be better, but there was a comfort in the past. So you may, with your club or with your members, run into people who are head in the sand, know things are going to go back exactly the way they were before. You have people who are maybe a little depressed. You have some people who are angry because they're very frustrated. Those are just stages of grief, and that happens with change. So all of our clubs currently are going through change and the grief that goes with it. All of our members are. So keep that in mind, but grab this opportunity because change is happening. And you can take control of the change and help move your club forward. So that's what we're going to talk about is some tools that can help you control the change that is happening and take advantage of this situation. So the first thing I'd like to point out is what we're going to be talking about with member satisfaction and community satisfaction is we're going to determine exactly where your club is right now. So if you go to a mall or to a new city and you're walking and they have these big signs. I did this a lot when, in the good old days, when I used to be able to travel in Europe, you'd get off a train station and the first thing you'd look for is a big map to figure out where exactly you are. And there's a sign that says you are here. Because from that point, you could figure out where you want to go and how to get there. So that's what we're going to talk about. Where are we right now in our club? Now, my sister always teases me because one time we did that and I argued with her and the map and said, that is not where we are. Even though the map clearly said you are here, that cannot be where we are. But so you may have some people arguing with the results of your surveys. The first one is measuring member satisfaction. And one thing I always like to make sure people really understand is that these tools were put together. There is a survey in this tool. We did not put together the survey saying this is how you have to do it. What happened is we said, we want you to survey your members. And a lot of people would say, well, that's great, but I don't know what to ask or where to go. So we put together something. By no means is this the end all be all. The best survey is one you've created within your club about things that affect your club. But I would rather have you use the standard boilerplate one than not do anything at all. So there is a paper survey attached to this. You can create this survey in something like SurveyMonkey or other tools, because I'm sure there's other tools now available for conducting online surveys. You can put this survey into an online tool, make it your own. You can do it as a group activity, or you can have individual conversations. So for an example with individual conversations is maybe you have 7 people on your board of directors. And of those 7 people, you have, my math isn't great, shouldn't have picked 7. But we'll just say you had 21 members in your club and 7 people on your board of directors. It's a pretty heavy board of directors. So each member of the board is given the names of 3 people in their club to call and contact and have a conversation with to find out how they feel about the club. Those are the best individual one-on-one conversations with people, but it isn't always practical. And you may not be comfortable doing it at first. Paper survey is probably your quickest and your easiest. One of my favorite, unless you have a club of maybe 100 plus members, is a group activity. And we have this great one that I'll be talking about in a few minutes that you can also adapt to doing online. So what's important about doing a survey is soliciting your member feedback. And I tell the story, and one of these days my former club president is going to listen to one of these videos and say, what? But he was so proud of himself one day because he did a member survey. Because I talked to my club about it, and he goes, I did a member survey, and I asked the members about how they felt about our club meeting, the time and the location. And he said, it was great. 60% of our members at our club meeting thought that was the best meeting time. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's 60% of the people who have actually shown up. So 40% of the people who made the time to show up for the meeting didn't think it was the best time, and probably close to 100% of the people who weren't at the meeting. So it's very important you get the perspective of all of your members. If you only get the perspective of the active members, the engaged members, really what you're asking for people to do is to make you feel good and just confirm that you're doing a good job. You need to reach out, sometimes even more, to the people who aren't engaged. So why aren't you engaged? Why aren't you coming to meetings? Well, it's 7:30 in the morning. Good Lord, I can't get up that early. Or you're meeting at a hospital and I can't seem to find parking, or I have to pay for parking. You know, there's all sorts of different, there's even reasons, and this is something you may find out from feedback. How many of you have a club that fines people for things that they do? Does your club do any fines? Raise your hand if anyone, or put it in chat. Okay. Nobody, Sue? Or nobody would at least admit to it?
No, well, most knows. I know
Okay.
Our club doesn't fine anymore either. One does, one doesn't.
Well, and it was funny because I knew someone who said, no one shows up late for our meetings. We fine them if they show up late. And I looked at him, I said, if I knew I was going to be fined for showing up late, I just wouldn't show up. So some Kiwanis clubs, whether you're mean to or not, have things that make people less involved or less liked. I know one Kiwanis club used to fine people if they wore socks to their meetings. And that was down in Florida, of course.
So we have a one club, they fine everyone every time someone says the word fine, they fine them. Sorry, Rhonda.
That's funny. And those are good, but you have to stop and think about fines, because some fines or shout outs or whatever make people uncomfortable.
Right. Now, a lot of clubs have changed to happy dollars. I belong to a Rotary club who fine people $1 for having their photo in the paper. I know in my club, if your photo's in the paper, you just come in and say, here's my $1 for my donation to be in the paper. So it's turned around from being a fine but it's more of a, okay, so Greg says it's not a fine, it's an assessment now.
Assessment. It's really a donation, isn't it?
Correct. It really is a donation.
Yes. But you really just need to make sure you get feedback from everybody, because there's things that, as I tell clubs, you have a choice and decisions about what you do with your club meeting, your service projects, and your club. But it's important for you to understand that things that make one group feel really good about going to their meetings in their club may make other people feel uncomfortable. Another example is singing. I knew some clubs absolutely, you got to sing, absolutely have to sing. And I knew people who didn't like the singing, so they intentionally showed up 10 minutes late to miss the singing. So what we like and don't like tends to drive our behaviors, but we don't always notice it. So getting and soliciting feedback really helps us along the way. I think there was another comment, Sue, before I go to the next slide.
Let's see. We do Happy Bucks. I'd say our club still does Happy Bucks, and a number of clubs does them virtually now. And I can tell you that in our club, our Happy Bucks have increased virtually because people are not giving the money right then and there. And what happens is someone corrects it, or someone, they make a note of it, and we send it out. Every couple of months we'll send out saying, "Here's your Happy Bucks. Here's what you owe the club," and people are just paying them that way. So.
And I know a lot of clubs used to, or they may still do it, they use a deck of cards and everybody puts in $1 to get a card and they put it in a bucket. Nowadays you could play online bingo with, those great, if you're doing an online meeting, when someone says, "Oh, I forgot, I was muted." Well, that's everybody has a square to tick off. And you could even do, people who want to play, I'll put $1 in, and if somebody wins, they get half the pot. Yes.
More happy dollars when someone requests that we do not sing happy birthday to them.
That would be me. I'd give you 20 not to sing happy birthday.
There you go. And Vicky says that their club pays Happy Bucks through PayPal. There's many options out there now. And, and I think that when we go back to meeting in person, that's going to become even more so, that we'll still be tracking Happy Bucks, and people either pay through PayPal or Venmo or whatever method they're using. Here's Venmo.
And a lot of clubs now are using services like that where people can pay once a month for their dues instead of having to pay all at once.
Right. I can tell you, I speak because I'm the secretary of my club, but we've done that. We actually went to once a year. We had paid quarterly, and we went to once a year, and we give everybody the option to pay quarterly if they still want to. But a lot of our people are with businesses, so they said we'd rather pay once a year than pay quarterly, and I know it's a lot of work for the secretary and stuff, but a lot of our members are like, just let me pay quarterly.
Well, and I've heard on the other side, particularly when they're younger people who are still financially not as secure, they prefer having the monthly draw out of their bank account.
Correct. And a lot of people do that too.
So it's just different people and being flexible enough to be able to do it differently for different people.
Right.
So this is like my favorite all-time activity, and I love doing this in person. I have not mastered it, but there are whiteboards that you can use in Zoom meetings. So you could do a Zoom meeting and use this in a whiteboard, and it's called Stop, Start, and Keep. And the idea behind it is, of course, have a group of discussions so people can start thinking of things differently, and then have everybody put down what thing would you want to stop your club stop doing, what one thing you wish your club would start doing, excuse me, and then something that's so important to you as far as tradition that you don't want to ever change. It's called keep doing, but really it means I don't want to change this at all. So I put an example up here. Because when you do it in person, you would actually have a big piece of paper, flip chart page on the wall. Everybody would get a sticky note. They'd get to write their answer down and you'd stick it up on a piece of paper. So I have visually designed this to look like that. So, woohoo! I'm kind of proud of this slide too, if you didn't notice, Sue. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd love it, and I haven't quite figured out how to use the whiteboard yet. So maybe that'll be my next task to learn how to do.
Yes. We're learning so much, we're going to live longer. They say the more you learn, the longer you live. We've all had to learn so much this last year. But some people want to stop donating to too many different causes. supporting an individual's pet project. Let's face it, there are some projects your club does only because there's one member who's absolutely dead set on keeping that project. I did use the ACE tools once with one gentleman who it was a group of people. They supported a train that was in a park that kids got to see, and 3 members were sitting behind him, and he says, "This is the most important project we do," and they all shook their head no. I mean, I watched the body language through the whole thing, and through discussing potential projects and other things to do, he actually ended up changing his mind, and by the time we got to this activity, he said it was time to give it up and hand it off to somebody else. So you never know. That's why these tools are powerful. So singing at meetings, just doing other organizational projects, not having your own Kiwanis projects, singing old songs, including meal costs and dues, changing things. Yeah, people really do. I've often said, just stop changing things. Requiring perfect attendance, having cliques at tables, taking or talking during a speaker's programs. At least we have mute now for online. The yard sale, too much time versus money. Giving small donations to many things or many people. Now, the thing you'd want to look at something like this is you can't stop all of this because some of these are going to end up on the keep doing list. But what you want to look for are some patterns. So a pattern that kind of appears here is donating to too many causes and giving small donations to too many. That's kind of the same thing, and it's one of my, actually my uncle pointed out, who's a Kiwanian, at one time he said, you know, if you give $100 to 100 different organizations, you are insignificant to basically most of them. But if you give $1,000 to one organization or $10,000 to one organization, by the way, I'm not an accountant or a money person because I don't think my math was right with them. But if you give a lot of money to one organization, then you become more impactful and more important, because the last thing anybody wants to happen is if your club goes away and your community doesn't notice, you were not significant enough in the community. And one way to help with that is by being significant with your donations. Are you making a significant impact? So those are things you're looking for, patterns of what people think need to be changed. Singing was something. Someone doesn't think you should sing at all. Someone's like, just stop singing old songs. Okay, maybe the compromise is we sing new, more upbeat or different types of songs. The next one is, as I said, it's the start doing. This is the fun list. The reason we have a stop doing list is all of our clubs have limited capacity for what they can do and what they can achieve. Now, I will tell you the best way to increase your capacity is increase your membership. But we all have limited capacity for what we can do. So if we're going to start some really cool things, we've got to get rid of some stuff. But here's some things that I've heard that people want to start. Having a spot open on the board of directors for a new person who joins your Kiwanis Club. So you get somebody in who joins in October and you have a spot for them on the board. Planning a playground, planning something big, something significant in your community. Adjusting our donation to our vision. A lot of Kiwanis clubs have a big problem of saying no. And anybody comes for any reason and needs money and we're like, well, we'll give them $50. By the way, that's how we manage to give tons of little amounts to little people. But if you have really set out what your vision is and you know what your club is supposed to do, if you're a literacy club like we talked about in the last session, if your focus is literacy and someone wants money for food for kids, you realize that donating to that doesn't align with your vision, and that gives you the ability to say no, but you can then help them find somebody who can help them. But it's keeping your donations aligned to your vision of your club, inviting more members. Every club needs to invite more members. Join the Chamber of Commerce, sharing our vision with the community. It's important that the community knows why you're there. Partnering with our Key Club. Having a service project instead of meeting 4 times a month, have a service project instead of one of those meetings. Lowering our dues. Having more socialization opportunities, more. You could technically, virtually while we have meetings, you could take one of those meetings and say, we're just gonna have a social hour. In fact, we're gonna get a member of our club is really good at wine tasting. And so maybe you have a wine tasting event where all of your club members are told to go out and buy a particular bottle or two of wine, and then you taste it and you learn about it from another club member. That's just a way of socializing within your club, getting to know members of your club. Start applying for grants. There's a lot of Kiwanis clubs that seem to think they need to carry the whole burden on their own. There are grants out there. There are people tripping over themselves to give money to organizations. So looking for grants. And sponsors, that's another way. I will tell you one cool thing. Some clubs, and I like to share this one, when they have a big event like a golf tournament, they have corporate sponsors. Included in their sponsorship at a certain level, they get a free membership to Kiwanis. So they've added members and they've connected that particular sponsor more closely to their own Kiwanis club. So looking for sponsors and giving them, including free membership in with that sponsorship price is a great thing to do. But look for some common themes, such as on earlier, someone said we should stop including meal costs in our dues. And then someone else says we should look at lowering dues. Those all marry. Therefore, you have a little more synergy, and you know there's more people who think these things are important. So look for some common themes. Do we have any comments or questions yet, Sue? I can't hear you. Is it me?
I got it. Good. Okay.
Okay.
Greg said that they use 3x5 cards when they do this in their club, which is a great idea because then it can be anonymous for those that wish to do it. But I think you made a great point when you said that we can give $50 to 100 clubs or 100 organizations, right? Or we can give $5,000 to one, but it doesn't necessarily mean we need to do it. And maybe we can help that group that's looking for funds, put them in the direction of a group that may be better suited for supporting them. Just because we have money and they know to come to the Kiwanis Club doesn't necessarily mean that if they're looking to do something, that really doesn't fit our mission, our passion, what our club is doing that year. It's like, well, hey, have you thought about contacting XYZ or talk to this organization because they may be able to help you because that's more their mission.
And another thing you can look at is, because so many Kiwanis clubs have pancake days, is you could even tell them, we sell a lot of pancake breakfast tickets. If you sell the tickets, for every ticket you sell, we'll give you 10% that you can donate to your thing. So they're working and adding, but they're also helping us. Right. Just different ways to partner with people. Yes, you're not like the parent in the community who just writes people checks. And that is a challenge that happens a lot with Kiwanis clubs that end up with really big foundations. They start looking themselves as they're the check writers. But we are really community, again, we're connected to the community. So being the check writer isn't necessarily the way to go.
Right.
Did Larry have his hand up?
He did have his hand up.
Just a question about including meal costs and dues. We found that particularly with young members, that's not a good thing to do because sometimes they just want to come and have coffee or drink or something and not have to pay the cost of the meal. That also pertains to if you have members that maybe come from a assisted living or one of those homes, they're already paying for their meals, so they don't want to pay for their meal there and then come to a club meeting and also have to pay for a meal. So I found that that's not probably the best thing, but maybe for other people it works fine. I don't know.
Well, in this particular situation, it said where they wanted to stop it. But I will tell you, the Kiwanis club I belong to is 45 minutes from my place. There are tons of Kiwanis clubs in between my place and theirs. But some of them I went to see. In fact, I had someone come up to me because I traveled a lot with work. And they said, oh, we love people who have to travel a lot and can't make it to meetings because that adds more money to our coffers because you aren't eating the meals. And I'm thinking, if that's what you view me as, I don't want to be part of this club. So yeah, it's very hard for someone who does a lot of traveling to be expected to pay for meals I'm never going to eat. So yeah, that's something, and I realize there's minimums at clubs for meetings, and that's just something we need to address, but I highly recommend you look at ways of not including the meals if you can.
And I know a lot of clubs now meet at restaurants in their back rooms where they may not have to have a minimum. It's just a meeting room. and they may be able to order off the menu. And you're right, if someone wants to come in and just have a beverage, they can have a beverage. Or if they want a bowl of soup, they can have a bowl of soup. So there's a lot of places that do that. Charles made a comment. This is one thing he's trying to do at their club, is to make sure that the groups that they routinely donate to come and present to our club. They had gotten in the habit of just automatically donating. And that was a common thing I used to hear. It's like, well, we just wrote the checks. It's like, well, are you providing that check? Do you even know what they're doing with your money, first off? And do they even need it? You know, you can make that donation, and yeah, they'll find a way for it, but is that really helping you out? And that's a great comment that he made.
Yeah, I knew someone who, when they were president, called everyone they sent checks to, and somebody said, yeah, well, we needed the money at one time and you gave it to us, but you continue to give it. We don't need it anymore, but we use other, that need's gone. We use it for other things. So yeah, it's really taking this time to really look at yourself carefully. And I'm just going to touch on the meeting costs. There is a minimum, and let's say the minimum is for 25 members, then take 25 times the cost of meal and spread it across everywhere. And then everyone pays for meals on top. I mean, those are ways of getting around that. There's just what's important to know, your dues are in your bylaws. So you need to make sure that it's not the board that decides what happens to your dues, it's your entire membership, and your bylaws need to be updated. That's my lawyer talk. I'm not a lawyer. I only play one on TV.
If you've stayed at a Holiday Inn Express.
Yes, but it's been a long time since I've been at a hotel soon.
I know, I get it.
Actually, it's only been a month. I actually presented live in Louisiana a month ago. So in the South, we're we're a little more open than you are up north. So the last one is keep. And these really show what people are passionate about, because they want to make sure that nobody manages to put it on the stop list and it disappears. So this is the self-preservation list. And what's important to know about this is the list of things people will fight other people to save and to keep. So they want the meetings to not change. I like my meetings. I like my seat. I like the group I sit with. They want to keep supporting our Key Club, supporting the local food pantry. And here, I think our club size is good. Why do I want to bring in more members? I think this is a really good size for our club. Sponsoring the baseball league, collecting for the Salvation Army, current meeting locations. There's just all sorts of different things that people want to keep. Like, I like this one, everything the same. We don't need to change anything. Those are going to be a little harder. And honestly, I have seen people say, if you change this, I will leave. And sometimes clubs have changed it. Some of those people did leave. Some of those people didn't leave. And some of those people who left came back, because sometimes they realize they'd rather have it a little different than not at all. But these kind of tell you what some of the potential obstacles will be as you want to move your club forward. Again, these are usually done anonymously, but usually with enough conversation, people will admit to what they think is the most important to them. And you can find ways of maybe compromising with them, helping them get what they want you to start doing or stop doing in compromise for what they think is important to keep, or even rationalizing why it is important. Now that's step one. That's the member satisfaction survey. As I said, you need to do that. Every club, in fact, it's in the policies and procedures of Kiwanis International that every year your president-elect is supposed to do that. They're supposed to do a survey of your club members. I know for a fact that doesn't happen, but that is a habit that really needs to get into. And I will tell you, start talking to your club after you get off the call today and talk about how to do a member survey. It's the easiest thing you can do, and it really gets your club moving forward because it's probably going to open your eyes to some things. The next one is the community. Sorry, just looking down at the time, making sure we're okay. Looking at connecting with the community or rediscovering your community. So it's how can I support my community better? How can I make sure the community knows we care about them, that we exist? And then discovering potential new members. There's always a way to find more new members for your club. So it's really important to listen to your group. Much like a member satisfaction survey, you can send out written surveys. You can do online surveys. You can do one-on-one conversations where you divide up, here are the key leaders in our community who really understand what impact's going on. And Sue, I want you to call these 5 people. And Larry, I want you to call these 5 people. And Bruce, you're in charge of those. And you divide it up amongst your club. Those are great ways of finding things out. And also, the nice thing about individual conversations is if you do it right, you as the person talking to them are asking them questions. It's not about me coming in there and saying, well, Kiwanis, our club's great and we do this and this and this and we're wonderful, we're fantastic. We're like, so what are some of the needs you've seen in the community? What are some of the, what are the things that surprise you about what our community needs or where we're weak? I was surprised at just how dependent our children are on the school system for their food security. I mean, I really have just been, I knew there were, you know, schools that provided lunches, some that provided breakfast, but just how when suddenly school wasn't in person, all these kids who weren't getting fed, all these kids that didn't have access to online, they couldn't do anything online. Even I've learned there are kids out there who get money for uniforms, and suddenly they have a whole year where they're not getting money for uniforms. That means they have less money for clothes. Are they getting shoes? Are they getting socks? Are they getting underwear? We don't know that unless we have conversations, because for some of these people, it's probably aha moments for what are we needing more of. It's not that what we were giving them before was bad, but the kids didn't need it back then because we had other methods of doing it. Now suddenly it's like, wow. So we need to really have these conversations now because we want our clubs to be very impactful. Networking events. So anytime you're out there rubbing elbows with other people, talking about what's going on in other communities, have conversations. So, you know, what have you seen in the community? What sort of things need to be done? Where are there holes in support for kids? Town halls are something that we can easily do online. So think about maybe the top, we can do it a couple of different ways. So let me suggest you may have somebody who's an expert, and they don't even have to be in your community, who's an expert at young children priority 1. They understand the importance of giving children a really strong start in the first 5 years of their lives. They can come talk to your club, and then you can have members of your club and maybe some select people in the community to discuss, okay, wow, how does that apply to our community? What can we do to help move that forward? That would be a way of having a town hall, is having a speaker who's an expert in a particular topic. And I know Sue's done things like this. She bases, I think, most of hers around just general Kiwanians, but in your community, you want people in your community there. You'd want to invite the school superintendent, someone from the school board, and they would probably appreciate learning new things also from an expert. And then discuss, all right, how can we address some of these issues? Are they really applicable? Are we addressing them in the community? Another way of having a town hall is just send out notes and say to people in the community, we're going to lead a discussion on internet access for our kids. And you might invite somebody from the local Wendy's, because if you've watched the news, there are kids who've been sitting outside fast food restaurants in order to access the internet. So maybe there are people who have free internet that you invite to the conversation along with people like the school board, and have a town hall discussion and break out into individual groups. And granted, you'll have to learn more about Zoom, but Zoom does allow you to break out in groups and have discussion groups about how do we deal with this? You know, what are some of the things we can do in our community, and get everyone back together and as a community learn new ways. Invite someone from the Rotary Club. Invite someone from other service organizations, because they have things to provide and to give. Because you want this to be a collaborative effort. So that's a way of doing a town hall online. It's a great way to start that conversation. And in fact, again, I love in person, but being able to do it online allows you to bring in expert speakers that you couldn't do I mean, you could get your local expert, but you couldn't get a nationally renowned expert about young children, or expert, not that anyone's totally an expert right now, but how are we leaving kids behind today? And what can we do to help catch them up? Those are things that are really out there. A lot of people are grappling with, but you could be on the front line talking about that with your club. Are there some questions or comments, Sue? I noticed the chat box just lit up.
One of the comments that was made earlier, just to kind of recap on the meal thing, was some clubs allow members to opt out of their lunch cost, but it's also very important not to include meals as a part of your dues, because dues are a part of your bylaws, and every time your meal charges change, then you got to change your bylaws. So the best thing is just to make sure your dues only are in your bylaws. The Vanessa says that their club had the Indiana Youth Institute Executive Director give a State of the Youth address for their community, and that individual gave stats on their community. So, I mean, perfect person, you know, you can Zoom from anywhere, right? And you'll find that, as I have found, that people are very easily and very excited about speaking to someone, and because they can pop in and do their 20 minutes or their half hour and leave, right? And they don't have to drive, they don't have to park, they don't have to do all that. So you can reach out to people, and I will tell you, we've had people all over the world on our Thursday night programs that have dropped in just to help out with, you know, talk about something, and then they're like, okay, that's it. But it's a contact that you have now for the future.
And I have a question to ask Vanessa back on that one. Did you then take that opportunity when you got that report about the state of your community and the children to discuss how your Kiwanis Club and how the community could really address those issues? Was that part of the conversation, or was it just a report?
It was a report, and yes, we did take some initiatives from that. We actually partnered with Local Council of Women, and we put on a series, and I'm trying to think of the name of it. So we think of the old time sex, drugs, rock and roll. We did sex, drugs, and suicide, and had 3 different panels that talked to our community about how we could engage and help our youth with those 3 areas.
Fantastic. Glad you took it to that next step. Sue, any other?
Nope, we're good.
Okay. But it's just really important that we engage and we take steps to move forward. So we don't want to just be the people sitting there listening. We need to incorporate that. And that's what makes it important, because the community perspective is what drives you. If you're unattached to your community, you're just dead in the water. It's just, you're just waiting for the last breath to go, because they are the reason you exist. And you know, your community may be a zip code, it may be a physical community, or it may be a focus, or you may say, you know, we want to work with kids who can't read anywhere in the world, or kids who have been recovered from human trafficking. Maybe that's our thing, and maybe that's more of a worldwide, but that's your community, that's your perspective. So you need to make sure that we're all engaged and attached to that. And I'm going to show you the ACE tool kind of overview. We talked about the first one, you are here. And that's what we just talked about, finding out where our members are and what they want and where they want to move forward, and where our community is and where their needs are. Then we get to dream about our future. And there are tools that'll help you picture what your vision is. What is your future? Where do you want to be focused? And a really crucial one, not that all of them aren't crucial, but analyze the gap. That's where you, as I said, you figure out where you are, where you want to go, and what's going to take it to get there. Because as you're having these conversations about these new needs in the community, as I said earlier, in order to start new things, you got to stop old things. And in there are some tools where you can say, where do we want to go? Where am I going to have the most impact? What's going to do the most for our community? What's going to get the community more energized? What can we do? A lot of people get stuck on, well, we want to fix that, but this person's in charge of that. That person's, well, okay. What part of that can you play in it? Putting together a plan, that's the reason you should really do this every year, because you put together a plan and then you got to do something. And that's why I'm telling you, when you get off this session today, call someone in your club and say, can we start doing a member survey? if you haven't done one? Or how can we reach out to the community? How can we plan a town hall? And you should be monitoring all of this monthly and evaluating it yearly, and then a deep dive every 5 years, or when circumstances like 2020/2021 come up, it's time to really reassess. And as I said, there's not a better time to do it than now. Just because everything's changed, everyone's uncomfortable already, let's just keep pushing them forward before they get comfortable again. Because once they get, it's kind of like a rock. It's easier to move, there's a physics saying, it's easier to move something already in motion than something that is static and still. So your members are already in motion, things are already changing, let's just keep moving them. Just move them forward. So questions, comments, Sue? What do you have?
We have some comments in the chat. Vanessa did put in the name of the program. So if anybody has, the panel included professions in these areas, parents that lost children due to these issues. So sex, drugs, and suicide issues our youth are facing today. Greg, one of the things Greg commented was, use this community assessment process with the previous sessions on a way to connect with your communities. And think about how you can put these two presentations together, right? We could have, very easily mixed them up, right? But it would have been so much information. So at least now, if you've seen the one and seen the second one, and you can always go back and watch them again once we get them, put up. But think about what comes first. What's your time frame? How are you gonna? What are your, when are you gonna do this? And one of the things that I know we've heard a lot about over the last year is take this time now when we aren't quite as active. What can we do? What a better time now to evaluate what our club is doing. Because you can't be out and about doing in our area, the hands-on work that you really like to do. And then Rhonda, can we get a copy of the PowerPoint?
Of course.
Okay, so
I will tell you there's no script in there, but you can get the pretty pictures.
Yep. And you did a great job with your stop, start, and continue. Those were good, very good. I was just looking at the wall behind you. It's white, so you could have been writing this on the wall.
Then I'd have to repaint it. The house is closing in a week. But
okay,
yes.
So let's not do that.
In fact, Sue, what I will do is let me forward you a presentation I have on all the Achieving Club Excellence tools so they can see, because I pulled pieces and parts out. Yep. That way someone can view the whole thing.
Perfect. So we'll make those available. Give us the weekend to figure out how to do it, but we'll make it available.
Great.
This is Larry. Yeah, we have a team of coaches that we're using in the district and have assigned to various clubs. And one of the things that we're going through with them is this excellence tools. So anything you have that would, a lot of the coaches were on the calls today, which we certainly appreciate. But that is one tool that we're using as we look at clubs that are struggling and having trouble. Is one of the big tools that we're using for our coaches. So anything that you can give us that we can share with them would be appreciated.
And Larry, I just did a module for lieutenant governors. And what's really important to remember, this is a tool every club can use.
Okay.
So I would tell you even your strongest clubs, because in actuality, if you work through this process, you're creating a strategic plan for your club.
Mm-hmm.
And it really develops a strong flywheel that helps move forward. So I always, in the old days, we used to go around and do workshops using the Achieving Club Excellence tools and actually practicing some of them.
Right.
And now we just kind of divvy them up.
Well, everybody should know that, if they don't know, that they're on the Kiwanis International membership site, there's resources available for club opening, strengthening, coaching. There's a lot of information there that they can use depending on what they want to use, even for club meetings or club presentations in this Zoom world that we're at today. But there's a lot of materials out there that you can use for clubs and looking at your club and evaluating. And we're all struggling with how do we maintain our membership from this last year or from this year going forward, and we know a lot of members joined because of the waiver of the dues, and how do we engage them and make sure they're engaged as we go forward for the next year. So I think all these presentations are so valuable to use as an educational tool.
Hey, Rhonda, can I expand on my comment about ways to connect in the community and the community assessment? Do you recommend that the club go through kind of the rest of the ACE tools prior to trying to connect to the community, or can some of that be done simultaneously? Or because I look at it as, you know, the club needs to have its act together to present a, you know, to say here's who we are, we're a good partner, and you know, all this stuff. And so, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think you need to constantly connect and be honest and say, you know, no one's going to question the fact that you're reassessing where you are and what you're doing in this day. And there's no weakness to say, you know, we've been around 20 years, 15 years, 100 years, and we're just sitting down and we're reassessing where we are as things have changed. And we'd like you to be part of the conversation because we want to see where we fit in. And, you know, and this is kind of a bridge between yours and Larry's comment is, if you want to keep members engaged, goes back to my days when I used to sell things, is you need to make them feel like they own this club. And the best way to help people feel like they own this club and the community feel like they own this club is to get them involved in the process and get their voices heard. So in all cases, you want your club to be the place that the community knows they can count on. You want to be the club that if you disappear today, the community would miss you. If there's a crisis, I mean, I look at crisis and I ask questions. So if your community has an emergency plan, what role does Kiwanis play in it? Because your club needs to be that integral in your community. So no, absolutely, you should, because we network with the community before we even open a club. So start networking now, just be honest with them. Say, we're going through this process. We're improving, we're getting better. So if someone gripes about what you did, you know, 5 or 10 years ago, say, hey, now's your time. You can join the club or rejoin the club and be part of our future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda, Greg, and Larry, and everybody else that's been with us. This has been great interaction with everyone and the opportunity to chat back and forth. And I, you know, as I sit here today thinking how many of these sessions we have done over the years, right? Over the last, it's been a year now since we really started this. We have probably offered, I bet we're close to 60 hours of education for our members. When you think about that, we used to go to a convention, right? International convention or a district convention, and in Michigan, we there used to be a fall trainer and a spring divisional and all those types of things. So now the opportunity to offer this kind of education is so much greater, and the fact that we're recording it is available for everyone to have to see it, you know, to see it again. As Rhonda mentioned on the webpage, excuse me, on her screen there, the ACE tools are all available under member resources at www.kiwanis.org. If you don't have that bookmark, that would be a great place to start. And I think the big thing is, oh, and Greg was showing some of the handouts. There's a lot of handouts. I think the big thing that's important,
Just printed it out,
is that there is a lot of help out there. It's making a phone call, it's sending an email, it's sending a text, you know, sending a Facebook, whatever it is. But there are a lot of individuals that are willing to sit down and talk with you and help with you to talk things. Now, we're not going to come in and do it for you, right? Because I can't come into Rhonda's home club and say, oh, well, let's do this and this, and then say, okay, see you later. It's up to you. But there's a lot of individuals out there who are willing to share their experiences, good and bad. And it doesn't mean it's you know, me. I mean, it can be anybody. You know, Bruce or Greg or Linda or Larry. I mean, there's so many individuals. There are people in your districts that are probably very experienced at this that just may not realize that the skill and the talent they have is valuable for other people. They may have done it in their own club, but, you know, let's figure out a way to help them share that with you. And the more people know, the better, the more that we can share that information. Most of the information that's coming in is chat is some thank yous and some links for the programs, the club membership resources, so that information is there. Rhonda, any other final thoughts?
The one thing I always end all my educational sessions with is you need to make this hour or 2 hours, depending on how long you've been with us, worthwhile, you need to take at least one thing away and act on it. Otherwise, you know, we pretty much, you might as well be sitting there watching some TV program. we need everyone to act on it. So pick something out of here. And if you don't do it this afternoon because you have too many things, do it Monday morning. Write it on the top of your to-do list for Monday morning and make this an actionable event. And that's how we move ourselves forward.
Right. The information is available. It's there, but you're right. You have to make it a point to make it happen. To make it happen. And you're the only one that can do that. None of us on this call. I mean, I'm the only one that can do it. You can happen. Anybody else can make it happen. So lot of great ideas. The comments that are coming in, Rhonda, great job. Thanks everybody for all their input and stuff. And I know that Michigan invited their club coaches and a lot of other coaches to do that. So these things are available to people, and we'll post these 2 videos sometime this weekend so that you can get to them. The Michigan District of Kiwanis does have a YouTube page that we are starting to put all these presentations, both from Thursday night of our Kiwanis Let's Talk program and then our Saturday programs. We're still finalizing some programs for March for Kiwanis Let's Talk. We will be together, or I'm sorry, for Kiwanis Cafe. So we've got so many, I'm like, I confuse them. But the Michigan District will hold its new member onboarding the first Saturday of the month, and that's a great opportunity for you and for new and prospective members to join and find out who we are. And I know Michigan is working on a program for the end of April to reignite Kiwanis by hosting a member onboarding for anybody. It's a refresher. Things have changed since I joined, a few years ago. Let's figure out what we can do to change that. So Linda, we'll give you last comments. I'm sorry, Rhonda.
Just thank you, and thank you very much to Michigan. You really have taken the lead, and it's amazing how many people have followed in your footsteps. And absolutely thank all of you Kiwanians out there, because you're obviously the active, engaged people and the leaders in your clubs and your districts. And thank you for all you're doing and for hanging in there, because it's going to get better. The sun is peeping out over the horizon. So thank you all so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Have a great Saturday. We will see those of you next Thursday evening for Kiwanis Let's Talk, when we listen to Jennifer Chavez from the California, Nevada, Hawaii District. We'll actually be talking about the pediatric trauma unit that they have out, that they support through the Kiwanis Children's Fund in California. So thanks everybody. I'm going to stop the recording. I'll leave it on for a few minutes, but I want to, that way, Rhonda